Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Burr, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick, a very special guest today. He is a Hall of Famer at Virginia Tech. He also is the head coach there of the men's golf team, Coach Brian Sharp. Coach, thanks so much for joining us on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast, getting this new year started, obviously in the college golf business. One of the very few sports that obviously has a fall and a spring sport. I know the weather outside for almost the entire United States is pretty chilly, but there isn't a whole lot of time left before you guys will tee it up in competition for the spring. How excited are you to get this new season underway?
Yeah, very, Ryan. Thank you, Roger, for having me, by the way. I'm always love to talk golf or junior golf, college golf, whatever golf. So appreciate you guys having me. Yes, I was actually doing some planning before. We still have, unfortunately, a little bit of snow on the ground here. Most of the players come back this weekend. We don't actually start class until Tuesday. And then we leave February 6th for our first tournament in Puerto Rico. So trying to prepare, which, as you've mentioned, the weather is not the same here as it's going to be in Puerto Rico. So even when we get outside, and I was just looking at next weekend, just making some tee times and stuff for next weekend, when it's going to be low 40s, playing in those conditions are much different than when we get to Puerto Rico and it's mid 80s, humid, the ball's traveling a lot further. So it's an interesting time of year, but it's just one of the things you get to deal with college golf, and you still get to play golf, whether it's cold or warm or whatever it is. We're all appreciative to be able to do this. So,
hey, Coach, you actually bring up a good point of talking about the weather here. I think a lot of our junior golf audience and parents maybe not realize really kind of the change in season. It really is not much of a change in season for a lot of college golf programs, right? I mean, you play in the shoulder season. You usually have a really good fall, maybe a start to the fall, and then it gets a little chilly in the spring.
Yeah.
It's such hit or miss. When you're recruiting players, is that something that you look at and kind of talk to those recruits coming in? Hey, this is when we play. I know you might be down in sunny Florida or Texas, and you want to play in sunny. Listen, Blacksburg, Virginia isn't the sunniest at all time. So how do you deal with that with recruits?
Yeah, I always address it, Roger, even when they're visiting or I'm talking to parents or players. I always address it because it's one of the things that comes up here. Like you said, we're not in Gainesville, Florida. Like this time of year, you just truly don't know what you're going to get. Some years we get snow, some years we don't. Last year was a good example where I think we got one snow. It was gone by midday that day. We didn't really miss any preparation as far as getting ready in the spring for the first term. Obviously, the fall is going to be nice as you go, but I always talk about that. I'm down in my office, obviously, right now, but we have two simulators that are down here with TrackMan and Foresight stuff. So you can prepare that way as well. Obviously, the working out and stuff, physically preparing your body, mentally preparing, shouldn't matter what the weather's like. But I enjoy watching kids. Like I'm going to Dallas this weekend for a recruiting trip, and the weather Sunday is supposed to be mid to upper 30s with some wind. So probably not going to be the most conducive to watching kids play great golf. I mean, hopefully I get to watch some good golf, but I want to see more how those kids just deal with the elements. I mean, it's not going to be any big surprise when they get out there. They know what the forecast is going to be, and I like watching kids. Some kids, I mean, and I like warm weather, Roger, don't get me wrong. I would much prefer to be in 80 degrees right now. But it's not realistic for most college golf stuff, especially in the spring. As we get later, into April, the weather's going to be nice and stuff. But I love watching the kids do it, whether it's a 75 and you just ground the round out. You got as much out of it as you could in upper 30s and some wind and stuff, or 65 and some nice weather. I just want to see, when I'm watching, like for this weekend, for example, the players that I'm watching, I just want to see how they get the most out of their game given the conditions. But I'm not expecting I think Dallas's high is 38 on Sunday with a like 15 to 20 mile an hour north wind.
Ooh.
I'm not expecting to see a kid shoot 65 that day. If they do, wow, that'll be impressive. But that's not what I'm expecting. But there's a couple of players that specifically, obviously, that I'm going to watch. I just want to see how they handle it because we do get it. I mean, spring weather. I can remember Furman. We used to play their tournament every year, and it was in the spring. They've since switched to the fall. But I can remember. I think it was 2012, so it's been a little while. But the last day was snow showers and mid-30s, and we were close to the lead. I think North Florida was leading at the time, but I was like, we have a huge advantage going into this final round, and we wound up nothing against North Florida, but we wound up winning by 17, I think.
Wow!
But it's because we had, fortunately or unfortunately, we had to play in that weather some where those kids from down there, it was miserable for everybody, but I guess we were just a little bit more accustomed to it. So. And you see it, occasionally these guys that want to go pro, you just have to learn to play in different conditions. So,
well, it's never bad weather. It's just whether you're prepared or not, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
It's just weather.
It's like a bad number on a par 3. It's not a bad number. It's just a number.
It's a number. Yeah.
I also think kind of hidden gem, certainly for Virginia Tech. And I encourage recruits to look at this because you think, okay, cold weather university, bad for golf. Well, let's just kind of talk about this because the fall's perfect.
Yes.
And that's pretty much for every school in America. I mean, late October, you're going to have some chill. You might get some bad luck with some rain or something, but for the most part, the entire fall season's great. Okay. Then you're off for finals and a rest period. And now think about this. For a Virginia Tech athlete, not back on campus to January 20th. So essentially a month where they can get their body right, spend some time with their family, but also realistically, family time is over January 1st. For some, I'm sure it's been 2-3 weeks in warm weather, playing tournaments or at least competition with themselves where you can make the argument on January 20th, their game could be as peak as it's been all year, and you really only have to get about 30 more days until spring is technically on the calendar.
Right. Yes, Ryan. Yeah, and Gareth Stain, for example, so Gareth from Australia.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to feel bad for him Monday night when I think the forecast low here's about 5. So he's been able to play tournaments, obviously in very nice weather and stuff back home. Most of our guys, at least played a tournament earlier this month down in Florida. So it's not like they can't prepare. And even here has honestly but not been too bad up until I guess this last week or so. But it may be nice next week. You just don't know what you're going to get here. But it is one of the things it's not going to be 75 degrees.
But I would encourage junior golfer families as they're considering northern schools to actually look at that return date. Some schools are going the first week of January. That is a very different deal than January 20th, especially with the season only 10 days away. If you're coming from, remember, there's no school there. I mean, you can practice all day, all night if you want. So I think it's a little overrated, the cold. I get that once you're back, you may be in a simulator for a week or two, but you're also going to Puerto Rico 10 days later, which you're going to be playing in great weather.
Yes, correct. And if we have snow on the ground here or something, we can go down to Charlotte or Pinehurst or spend a weekend down there playing. It's not as maybe a big a deal, the weather, as some people make it out to be. Now, I know Caden, your son, obviously, Ryan, still at Boston College. I know their golf course access is probably limited a little bit until later in the spring. But
but little different climate from even Virginia
just slightly.
Just a little bit. So, but you do the best you can with what you have at the time, and And I get it. I've certainly offered and been declined by players that wanted to go somewhere warmer. I totally get it, being somebody that likes to be warm as well. But it shouldn't be, I guess, the biggest factor when
Let's
guys.
talk. I loved your answer about going to Dallas this week, and for sure, the scores probably won't be record breaking, but
Right.
What an opportunity for everyone to make an impression on every coach that's there. Let's talk a little bit about performance development. I know it's important to you at Virginia Tech. It certainly is part of your job, which is picking players that are not only good in the moment, but that you think as a coach you can help take it to the next level. Is there a trait? Is there something you're looking for in a potential recruit that is kind of your secret sauce?
Well, I wish, and I've joked before, Ryan, it's not rocket science. If it was, it'd be a whole lot easier because I could just put a formula in and know that Ryan Burr in 3 years is going to be, the 20th ranked player in the country. That would be cool. A lot of times there is a little bit of luck involved, but the one trait, at least that I've found, the guys that we've had here that have been All-Americans that have gone on to, play well, whether it's PGA Tour or wherever after this, they all loved golf, and it's the one characteristic I think that I'm probably looking for. If it's not, a lot of times I'll ask players on visits what they do like outside. If I took their clubs away for a week, what would they do? Some kids are like, God, I can't even fathom that, having to figure out what I do for a week without my golf clubs. And I'm not saying, I necessarily want kids that's all they do. I want them to have a social life and do other things. I love kids, by the way, that play other sports as well. But that seems to be, at least for me, that's the one thing, because I love it. I mean, I wake up, I'm sitting here, my wife's giving me grief. I'm watching ground force videos and stuff when I get home yesterday, just having a snack or whatever. But I like the kids that golf is a huge priority in their life. They just love to do it, not because I'm making them do it, but because they want to go play and work out and get better at golf. So that's the biggest thing that I'll look for. But like I said, honestly, sometimes you just get lucky. You like a kid or you interact well with them, they'll be a great teammate. And then for some reason, Joey Lane for us, Joey's been playing the, what do we call it now? The Corn Ferry Tour a little bit. I think he's lost his card now, but he was the one, like his freshman year, he was in and out of the lineup. His freshman year, actually, fun fact, Ryan, I don't mean to get too far off topic, you either, Roger, but we had a year, Joey's freshman year, if we had only played 4 players the entire year, it would have cost us 1 spot at one tournament. Wow. We would have finished 5th instead of 4th. So it was 4 guys doing the majority of the work. Joey was kind of in and out of that 5th spot. A lot of talent, love golf, great family, but he didn't have the confidence, I guess, to know that he was good. Junior year, I think he finally understood. Something clicked with him. He wound up winning our state amateur that summer, came back, played great for us. Those are the really fun ones for me, if I'm being honest. Maybe not, the highest level recruit. I love those guys. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have, 5 top 10 ranked kids in the class, but those are the guys that I probably get the most enjoyment out of, is just watching them, the confidence, just understanding that they can be good. The golf ball doesn't care who's hitting it, but you have to believe that you can make that thing go where you want it to go as well. So, but those are my favorite kids. I'm not saying, although I would say Joey's definitely been one of my favorite players over the years, but those are the really fun ones for me.
Coach, as we talk and we hear a lot and get a lot of questions from parents, one of the things they ask us about when they go play college golf, and they know that there's a very, very small percentage of players are going to go on and be a professional, right? But that's the dream. That is most of them dream, and to your point of loving golf. But what do they do after? What are some of the things that you do and Virginia Tech does as a golf program to support them and what their endeavors are in life versus just golf? Is there some secrets there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much secrets, Roger, but we have like a student development group here on campus, and they are very open. We always stop by there, like on the campus visits and stuff, but they're very open. The day you get here, they're trying to get you ready to leave here. Whether that's an internship, which most of our guys, most of the golfers don't really do internships because unless it's over the winter months, you don't really have time during the summer to do one. But I want them, my biggest thing is they graduate and they do well in school. Just so you guys know, I don't discuss contracts and stuff with other coaches, I guess, but I'm not judged on how the kids do academically here, but it's very important to me that they do well because we've had players go on to law school or other graduate programs that are doing great outside of golf after they've graduated. So that for me, the ones I will say, Roger, when I talk to players, because having played professional golf and knowing what that life is like, most of them don't understand. We're watching TGL and stuff last night. You get to see the best players in the world on TV. You don't get to see, the guys that maybe are playing mini tours and missing cuts and spending a few $1,000s, and you're holed up in who knows Mississippi trying to, just make a cut and do something. You don't get to see that life of, hey, this billboard says this place is $50 a night. That's where I'm going to be staying tonight.
Hey, Brian, I remember 7-Eleven $2.99 specials at 7-Eleven in
Amen.
South Carolina.
Yeah, but that's the life that you kind of have to go through. But nobody really sees that side of it. And I do remember one of my favorite quotes was a reporter was asked me one time, because I'd only got to play one PGA Tour event, but I'd played some mini tours and then Buy.com or Nike when I was playing. But they said, what's the difference between the Hooters Tour and the PGA Tour? And I said the golf honestly is not that much different. We're not getting to play as nice place, but I said the PGA Tour guys are looking down at the menu at night, and I'm looking up at the menu, ordering my combo meal, whatever that was. But that's the lifestyle, and if you want to do this for a living, that's what it takes. Is understanding that. I mean, my first full year after I left college, I was traveling 40 weeks out of the year. So you're living out of your car and that suitcase, and I was very proud. I had 1 week on a Hooters tour. I paid $100 for the week at this hotel. You can imagine how nice this hotel was for $100 a week.
Luxury.
Yeah, but you did what you had to do, and I loved it. I mean, I wouldn't trade. I played for about 7.5 years after I got done, but there's a point too when you understand that, hey, there's some other things that I want to do as well. So
actually, speaking of that, I think that's a really good segue into NIL, right? I mean, it's changed a lot, right? And what these players are doing now and what they have available to them. So on the shoulders of players like yourself and Hall of Famers like yourself, right? This is on the shoulders of that. So think about that.
Yeah. Well, in NIL, one of the great things about NIL, and I get that, not every kid's going to get to go to college and get paid in addition to the scholarship. But for those guys that want to try professional golf afterward, even if it's, $5,000 a year in excess of the scholarship or $10,000, they can put that money away and you've got something to go get started. And it's important, as you guys well know, professional golf's not cheap. I don't care what level you're playing it at. So NIL will change that landscape, not for every kid, but for a lot of kids, it will help them a ton when they graduate.
Has it changed recruiting for you guys? I mean, has it been one of those things that, players and parents are asking more about when it comes to what do you have to offer?
Yeah, and it's mostly, honestly, Roger, it's more with, that elite kid that's, top 20 in the class, top 50 or so. That's that's when you're having to have more of the discussion. For us here, obviously we've chatted about the weather and stuff. It's a big deal though. If we can offer a kid, a full scholarship plus some money, that may sway that player to come here rather than go to, a Georgia or Alabama. I mean, I'm not going to blame, I've seen Alabama's facility. I'm not going to blame a single kid for picking there versus here, but those are the type things now that at least there's a few players, if I'm being honest, there's a few players that maybe I wouldn't have recruited that now I can at least have a discussion with them where, tell me what you need, basically. Yeah. And I'm not saying we have unlimited funds here. That would be great, but it is definitely part of the discussion. There's a flip side to that as well, too, Roger, because the expectation gets much higher as well. If we're going to pay a kid, I mean, the expectation's pretty high that kid is going to be, an all-ACC, all-American type player. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm not as patient over 4 years, if you're not seeing the results, but they have to understand that as well, that because I'm going to give you $20,000 a year or whatever it winds up being, mm-hmm. like I need to see something for that. And if you're the fourth or fifth guy in the lineup, that's probably not going to be good enough.
Yeah, it's actually very funny you say that. I was having a conversation this morning with one of our young athletes, and about that is the responsibility that you have on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And how many of these young people are actually ready for those kind of business discussions, right? And I think there's a lot of naivete, I guess, if you will, with parents and these players that it is a business decision to do these things. And then therefore there are obligations there, and it's not a free ride. And I think that's one of the things that I hope that we're getting better at educating the general population on this, right? Because to your point, every coach has an expectation for a scholarship kid. Right. And then there's more to that, right? If I'm an NIL guy, there's more expectation. So it's not a hey, just give me. It's okay, I'll give you, but then I want to see a return on investment. So I think one of the things that we all have to do better in the area of junior golf and golf itself is understand that this is now you're entering into a whole different relationship as a business partner, and not just a hey, you're a student athlete. As much as we want that to be the case, I do think that there is we can't be naive and not have those conversations, right? Because I think that's the way of the world. It's life. It's what you're asking for.
Yeah, correct. I mean, we have somebody with our collective that advises them on tax issues and stuff that they run into in this. But that's something that hardly anybody thinks about.
Yeah.
So there are definitely a lot of other issues that come along with NIL as well. I can't say, and honestly, I'll put this disclaimer out there, Ryan. I don't speak for the entire Virginia Tech athletics department. I don't love the way college athletics is headed, and I'm all for hey, if you can get some money and get paid, that's awesome. I don't know that that's what college athletics is supposed to be about.
I mean, it's obviously it's all driven by football.
Oh yes.
I mean, you just look at Georgia's quarterback that's transferred to Miami for $4 million. Will Levis, who was the starting quarterback for the entire year for the Tennessee Titans, a third-round pick, made $800,000 playing in the National Football League, and have Carson Beck that's going to make $4 million 1 year for Miami. There's good and bad. It depends what side of the coin you're on. Certainly, everyone's staying in college longer now because especially if you're middle tier, there's way more money to be made in college than the professional ranks.
Yes.
But the arms race does seem to be completely ridiculous, completely out of hand. The portal, the money, this is not what anybody intended with name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness was if you want to have an autograph show and you can get $4 for your name, or if we're selling your jersey in the bookstore, you can receive. It wasn't, here's $4 million, don't do anything. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's not a coach in America, any sport, even when they have the $4 million like Miami, that believes this is good for what we're trying to do here.
Right. Yeah. I just, I don't know. It's getting, and like you said, it's more the revenue sports, the basketballs and the footballs, and rightfully so. Those guys, we get to do what we do because those guys do what they do. But it just seems like we need to figure out a way to do this better. Either it becomes a professional league,
Yeah.
a farm system, and then and NFL or NBA or something. But what we're doing right now, it just seems like, and it's not NASCAR, Brian. I know I still loved your story about getting thrown into the NASCAR coverage, but we're not all the same. If Texas wants to spend, Texas or Ohio State, I guess, want to spend $20 million to have a better team, more power to them.
Yeah.
But I just.
But I mean, it's 5 years ago where, at least in golf, it really was. I mean, you had some limitations on maybe scholarship or colder weather, but everyone was on a same playing field.
Yeah, and I can still remember Golf Digest. I think it was Golf Week. Sorry, Golf Week did a survey of Division I men's golf, and only 7% of them at the time had a full scholarship athlete on their team.
That's right.
It just was not common. Even honestly, like 5-8 years ago, it just wasn't that common because with the 4.5 scholarships, you had to do what you could, but now it's becoming, I still think there should be some value in that and a full scholarship to know that you're going to get to go to a place like Virginia Tech and have no student debt when you walk out of here.
Yeah.
There should be some value in that. But it just seems like NIL's taking all the conversation, especially with a lot of the student athletes. So.
Okay, Coach, I'm going to just switch just a little bit here. Okay. I'm a prospective student athlete with, as a parent, and I'm looking at Virginia Tech. Tell me one thing I don't know about Virginia Tech. Why Virginia Tech for me and my family?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't want to throw you the full sales pitch, Roger, but the one thing that I love about here is just that we have a little bit of everything. I mean, it's definitely, and you hear, I know when I had Caden and Ryan, when they visited that time, I talked about it really is, it's a big school. We have 30,000 plus students that go here, but it doesn't feel that way. And especially in the athletic department, it definitely feels like a big family. I've been to, so my son, this has actually been fun for me. So my son's a golfer as well. He's 16. He's in 11th grade. So I've gotten to do a couple of college visits with him now, being on that parent side. And I've joked, because I know all the coaches, obviously, but I said I'll either be the best parent you've ever had or the worst parent.
We're not going to say what Ryan is. We're going to leave that.
No, Ryan's great. Yeah, I love spending time with them. But it's the resources, I guess. There's not from the smaller schools to the bigger schools, that seems to be the difference. Is just the resources that we have from the academic support with the tutoring and those things. We have a full-time nutritionist that works with our team, sports psychology, student development, what we're talking about. That's the one cool thing here. We're obviously Blacksburg, we don't have a pro sports team here. So, but if you want to go watch if you want to go watch great basketball, I'm not saying our team's doing that great this year. I'm not knocking them. But those type things that you can also do here as student athletes. Football obviously dominates the fall here. But those are the type things that you get to do in Blacksburg that maybe other places you don't get to do as much. But I just think it's an awesome place to grow up. Blacksburg, I think it was 2014 or 15, Bloomberg selected the best place to raise a family in each state, and Blacksburg was actually the overall best place to raise a family in the U.S. At the time. So, but like I said, I don't want to give you the whole recruiting spiel here, Roger. But
Coach, let's just get into player development real quick.
Yeah.
You obviously
heard
the PDI presentation.
Yes.
We at the Nota Begay are moving to where we'll be the first where every kid will have a PDI score, that for part of the recruiting process, a coach would be able to compare apples to apples to players at Texas, Stanford, Virginia Tech, and a junior golfer. As it becomes more of a world game, you talked about Australia, New Zealand, certainly Asia, North America, South America. How much as a coach would just having an apples to apples test score, so to speak, SAT score, help your process?
It would definitely add to it, Ryan. I loved when you guys were speaking at the convention, because I was not as familiar with it prior to that. But the testing to just be, it's the same for everyone. It's not, and I get sometimes the weather conditions can be a little bit different, but to have that test and a score, and then to know, like, hey, here's where I am, this is where I want to be, I think those things are great. And from my perspective, because typically I'm just seeing golf scores, and the rankings are what they are. And I get, some kids can play more, some kids can play less. I get, the ranking has to have some component to it, but I won't say it's unfair, but some kids know how to game those rankings.
Right.
So to have a test like what you guys are doing with the kids that's arbitrary and is the same for everyone is fantastic.
Yeah, to your point, Coach, I mean, what we saw all the time is that you see 1,000 kids who can shoot 72, right? And there's lots of ways to get to 72, and there's lots of ways to kind of raise your ranking up. But do they have the school? Do they have the skills, the mental skills, the physical skills, the golf skills, and being able to perform those skills at a level that says, hey, I can now start to predict what might happen here. And I think for a college coach, one of the biggest things that we've heard now is, I can start to, trend this player on their PDI score and know that, hey, whether they have a bad score or not in a tournament, I know their skills are still developing, and I just can't wait to have that level of player here who's going to just be turned loose on playing golf, right? So.
And honestly, as you guys do this more, so when we see this in 5 years, Ryan, that we can go back and say, these were some of the attributes that this kid had who improved his PDI this much. These are the attributes he had, or this is what he, figured out worked well for him, how he became better. That's where this stuff is going to be invaluable. When we have the prior data,
100%.
Future data as well, I think is going to be great.
And what you'll see is that all the great players, all the great players tend to be in a certain number area, and then you'll see it go down the line. Last thing I want to get to, and certainly look forward to discussing PDI further with you, but this is just me, and this is my take on you and Virginia Tech, Coach. I think kids make decisions for a lot of reasons. Certainly, academics are a huge part, especially if you don't believe that you're going to be Rory McIlroy. You may have a chance at professional golf, but at the end of the day, you're a great student and you're making an academic choice. Secondly, you're making a choice based on strictly golf, the history of the program, how many they've turned out to the PGA Tour. I think again, this is me speaking, and I think the thing that is not looked at the most that needs to be high on the list is how will my son or daughter personality fit with the head coach at a school. Listen, there's Vince Lombardi's out there in the game of golf that there's not a whole lot of pat on the back if the kid needs a pick-me-up. And you mentioned your player that it wasn't until his junior year. It was there all along, but he never had the confidence. And obviously you were able to get that out of him. I always felt, Coach, that you were, as a parent, you were someone that you could send your son to, and you knew that regardless of what area of life they needed help, you were going to give that to them. And I just think a message to the parents, don't overlook the personality between your son or daughter and the head coach, because it's golf, they're on their own, and a lot of times being able to talk and communicate and have a relationship with the coach is going to get that player to play a lot better, a lot even more than, how their golf swing is, just how their brain is. And I've always admired that about you, Coach.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. That's very, very nice of you to say. The one aspect I try to guide kids on and parents, because it is a confusing time. Having gone through this, there's a lot of luck involved, timing. I'm talking to the right guy at the right time, but some of the better players get a little hung up on I have to go here or where, and it's like wherever you go is going to be good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're that good. Wherever you go is going to wind up being good. Don't get so hung up on, I have to go here because I'm ranked here. There are so many good programs and so many coaches that are, just fabulous people. I feel very fortunate to call a lot of these coaches friends and stuff. But all we're trying to do is the same thing as parents that you are trying to do, is to just make them more responsible adults. And it's awesome for me to see. One of my favorite moments when they get ready to graduate, I usually go back and look at those first and second year pictures. You cannot believe how much your son or daughter changes while they're here. They really mature. And if you can be a part of college golf, I think it's wonderful. But it's just as much fun for us as it is for the kids to get to do it. And it's one of my favorite things is, 10 years later, they start having kids and families and keeping up with them. But
absolutely.
That's
Coach, thank you for coming on the Hub
Junior Golf podcast
today. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you guys. Thanks, Ryan.
Take care, Coach.
Okay, I'll take care.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. And Roger, another good one. One that I'm sure will be doing PDI through his team, guarantee it. And then he has those scores from this year, and one he can start using that compared to the junior golfers that also are able to get a PDI score. But he brought up a great point. I mean, imagine when there's years of data and you're able to now, and it might not even be something like that you would think about, what area of PDI will ultimately connect with a certain coach, where after 5 years, he's like, you know what, this one test more than everything else, my best players did well in this area. And you start to actually, and coaches will start to actually make decisions in the recruiting process based certainly on golf score. That's never going to go away. And we're not suggesting PDI is replacing golf.
No.
We're just suggesting that there needs to be more than a score. A score in California in Palm Springs with 0 wind is different than Dallas this weekend with 20 and 38. There's going to be 2 kids that play this weekend, one in Palm Springs and one in Dallas.
Yeah.
And the initial reaction is to compare their score.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, my ranking changes 50 spots because I played in Palm Springs in 75 degrees, no wind, perfect conditions. And I may drop if I'm playing in Dallas and I'm playing in 31 degrees, right? I mean, that's just what's going to happen, right? It's just the system that's out there right now. And I think that's, we'll see that. I mean, listen, one of the things that's been fun, like this morning we had a phone call with 2 teams that we're actually now going on 4 years doing PDI with, and one of the coaches in fact mentioned, this is what I'm looking for, right? He goes, his 2 recruits this year, he goes, this is what he looked for, right? And I won't give that secret away for that coach, but I can tell you he's won 2 national championships in the last 3 years. So it's pretty interesting. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. Very exciting. Certainly, thank you to Coach Sharp, and certainly from the PDI perspective, look forward to getting to Virginia Tech, getting them assessed, and letting him start that baseline for his recruits. And certainly, what's coming the way of junior golf, it is going to be an incredible opportunity, especially for the kids that aren't on the circuit, so to speak, that are playing the top events throughout the year, the invitationals and whatnot. It's really hard, especially if you get to your junior, senior year, to break into the quote unquote circuit. If you were playing 3 sports and now you've decided, all right, I want to be a college golfer, but I can't get in these events. You know what? PDI is going to open up a lot of doors for a lot of kids, because It's apples to apples, and there is no resume required to take your PDI and get a coach assessed score.
Not at all. All you got to do is just go on golfpdi.com, right? Let's see, get that assessment done. Find a coach near you.
So certainly looking forward to that. Great guest today in Coach Sharp. We certainly thank him for his time. And we thank you for watching. Certainly we do this because we think it is a gigantic void in junior golf, a gigantic void in how to make your junior golf better at golf, which obviously is the ultimate goal, and then obviously moving on to play college golf. So another wonderful podcast.
Hey, Ryan. We've got a special announcement today, I think, right? We have a birthday today on here.
We do?
Yeah, I think quarter century birthday for our producer. And
wow.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe a little shout out.
Happy birthday to Michael Nick, our director and producer. And I know, Roger, you're fond of this guy.
Yeah, a little fond of him. Yeah, pretty good guy.
Pretty good guy, and certainly we couldn't do this without him. And the giant announcement is that PDI is moving into the Nota Begay Junior Golf National Championship as its own element. We will actually, Roger, tape 8 players, 4 boys, 4 girls, to the national championship on Golf Channel.
Yeah,
they'll play before every college coach in America on Golf Channel, strictly based on the top PDI score. This is, I have goosebumps saying it because I'm just so excited to see where this takes PDI, Roger.
Absolutely, Ryan. I mean, we're thrilled. We're thrilled at you and Nota believe in what we're doing and what's happening. I think it's going to change the landscape. I really do. We've been talking about this now for a while. I think everything's in place for this to happen, and I think we're going to see some great players, and I think the world's going to benefit from it. So, which is even better.
So you'll hear a ton more about this as we unveil it. But if you're wondering what this means, it means there's going to be events that are every player gets a PDI score, and then regardless of how you played in the tournament, the top PDI scores will be exempt all the way to now the World Championship on Golf Channel. So a ton more to come on that. It is exciting news as we've ever had at MB3. It is everyone is just so excited to see how this changes the sport, which obviously needs a little push in this direction. So excited. A lot more to come on that. Happy birthday to Michael. He's catching up to us, Roger, because our birthdays don't change anymore.
That's right. He is. He's getting there. Yeah, it's a good thing.
So we thank him. Happy birthday to him, and certainly to you, Roger, and look forward to seeing everyone back here next week on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.